Master. Flight 232 was on its way to Chicago from Denver when it came down short of the runway at Sioux City Airport in Iowa. From the scene, our United States correspondent David Foster now reports.
The jet had lost an engine and most controls before it hit the ground, bursting into flames, flipping over and breaking up on impact. It had come down half a mile before the runway, and the wreckage was scattered over a wide area. Eyewitnesses spoke in amazement that as many as 165 may have survived.
It was unreal after what I saw to see somebody get off that was like that.
Medical teams arrived by helicopter, treating injured and airlifting others to local hospitals as survivors told of their escape.
My youngest son was right next to me, and I had my arm around him, and I knew I was okay, and I looked over and I knew he was okay, so I unbuckled myself, and then I unbuckled my son Andy. And at that point, everybody was very orderly in the process of evacuating. There was a pretty good channel on both sides to get out whatever opening we saw daylight.
United Airlines said the 15-year-old DC-10 had a regular maintenance check before the flight. While accident investigators from the National Transportation and Safety Board are now here on the scene, one thing in particular that they'll be concentrating on is how, if as some people have suggested, the plane had lost all hydraulic power, it managed to circle the airfield maybe as many as 3 times before the crash. David Foster, TVAM News, Sioux City Airport, Iowa.
Back home now, and police investigating the contamination of Smith's crisps will this morning question staff at the company's factory in Lincoln. Fragments of glass, staples and splinters of wood have been discovered.
Basic luxuries that I'd previously taken for granted. I wanted us to stand on our own 4 feet, but I have at times felt penalised for my pride. Well, good morning to you. It must have been very hard at the beginning when you were actually left on your own with Kerry, just 6 months old. I mean, that must have been really tough.
Yes, it was at the time. I was hoping to be able to give up work to be a full-time mum, but it came as quite a shock. The divorce and everything came as quite a shock, and I was just bombarded with having to cope. There was work which I was determined to carry through so that we could have a reasonable standard of living in the future, and also just being on my own, having to cope with all the problems. For the first time ever, having to worry about money and not having enough to meet the bills at times, and it has been hard, but we've managed, and it's been worthwhile. She's worth it.
I mean, you had sort of crisis actually with Kerry, didn't you, with her education at one point?
Yes, it was about a year ago. She was due to start school last September, state school, and on that basis we'd just moved house. We bought a bigger house, a bigger mortgage, on the basis that the nursery fees would not have to be paid for a year. And then shortly after we moved house in April, we were told that the local education authority had changed the policy and were not taking children in until the September previous to their 5th birthday, which set Kerry back a full year. Which also meant that I had to find the nursery fees for another year. It's been a struggle. It's put us into debt, but that's only a temporary setback.
It's an incredible story. You've done awfully well. But what is lovely, looking at Larry and Kerry together, and I think this is important, is, you know, the mythology that single-parent families are unhappy families, that they can't be successful families, that the children suffer. You've only got to see these two together to see that although Larry's been a working mum, she's also been very much a full-time mother. I mean, you know, it shows.
There is this thing, Claire, which, I mean, you often hear it said, and I'm sure that an awful lot of single-parent mothers particularly feel a sense of guilt about it, and that is that a child will not grow up to be a well-rounded child if they don't have a father figure there.
Yeah. This isn't necessarily true at all. I mean, have you got a father, brothers? I don't know. I mean, are there other men in the family?
Only my father and an uncle. That's all the contact she had for about 3 years.
But you only need one, really. I mean, the fact that there nearly always is somebody, a father, an uncle, a brother, a friend's husband or whatever, who provides that male input, as it were. And there are plenty of children, as we well know, who are in 2-parent families who never see their fathers anyway. So I really don't think that it's that children in this situation are necessarily penalised. As I say, you've only got to see these two together, and I've watched them since they got here. There's no question that Hilaria's a very successful mum and that Kerry's a very happy girl. You are, aren't you, Dom? Yes, I can tell.
But there are obviously financial problems.
Enormously, and it takes so much courage and energy and drive. And it just seems to me so wrong that as a society we don't think it's worth investing in supporting mothers and children and giving them that extra financial help. I mean, to get decent nursery care very often in some areas, you actually have to pay for it, which adds an enormous burden. In some areas, some mothers are luckier, they can get nursery care for their children so that they can stand, I love that phrase, stand on their own 4 feet. You know,
it's great, isn't it?
Yes, it's tremendous, and I do congratulate you. You're doing a great job.
And also, there's a happy ending to this in a way, isn't it? After 4 years, you've actually...
Yes, well, about a year ago, a man came into our life, didn't he? Tony. Yeah, he was absolutely marvellous. He's got the patience of a saint with this one, because it's very difficult for her to adjust to him, and we're together. We eventually hope to get married and hopefully add to the family.
That's smashing.
But he loves children, which is important, and he certainly loves Kerry, doesn't he?
Well, thank you very much for coming all the way from North Wales for us today.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Claire. And stay with us because we've got more on the joys of parenthood after this break.
What could be nicer than a light, refreshing cup of Lift lemon tea? The answer's a larger jar.
Does a Smartie get detention for being out choco-late? Now, how many colours count as a bite? Who put the art in Smarties? How far can a tube go? Who knows? Do the reds go purple when they play the blues? Does milk chocolate taste better after dark?
Yum, yum.
Only Smarties have the answer.
Twit.
Heinz spaghetti. You never grow out of Heinz spaghetti.
The king asked the queen, and the queen asked the dairymaid, could we have some butter for the royal slice of bread? The dairymaid said, actually, you'd better tell His Majesty that many people nowadays like golden churn instead. With spoonfuls of butter, it was just the thing, deliciously tasty and fit for a king. Impressed, he proclaimed, everyone is to learn to spread on their bread tasty Kraft golden churn. You can taste the butter in golden churn, and that's no fairy tale.
The first was a fight for his teacher. The second was a fight for his honor. Now he must face his greatest challenge.
Your karate's a joke. Come on, come on! Yes!
The Karate Kid, Part 3. The legend lives on.
Welcome back to After 9. We wanted to end our special look at you and your children on a positive note, and the results from After 9 and the Woman's Survey are that 99% do feel happier and more fulfilled from having children. One of these families is Teresa and Chris Hambrook and their baby daughter Victoria. Let me just read you a little bit of Teresa's letter. She says, Victoria was born on April the 16th, 1988, and from that day on I've been a different person. I was in awe of this 8 pounds, 4.5 ounce bundle, and I am still in awe of my beautiful 14-month-old baby. I'm sure I'm not the only mother who feels this way, but I just felt I had to write and tell you about her. My husband and I both look at her and wonder how we produce such a wonderful human being. Vicky has made me more confident and much more contented. In fact, our baby has helped to cement our marriage, and I'm delighted to say that they're with us this morning. She does look absolutely gorgeous, I have to say, Teresa. Were you surprised, do you think, about just how powerfully you felt this feeling towards her when she was born?
Oh yeah, when I was pregnant I was very much child orientated, you know. Growing up I loved to see children, but especially when my own child was born I couldn't believe it. I thought, you know, this is just wonderful, and it just hit me all of a sudden in hospital, and I thought, this is wonderful.
Chris, how about you? I mean, did you feel always that you always wanted to have children?
Not at first, no. It was a decision we didn't take too lightly. But Teresa's persistence, really. Well, I wasn't too sure at first, but once Vicky arrived, then my mind was utterly changed.
It's quite unusual that, because often fathers say that when babies are first born, they don't feel very sort of connected to them really, because they're so sort of locked onto their mother. But you felt that, did you?
I couldn't understand that. I read in all the magazines how fathers had felt left out and felt sort of, I don't know how to put it really, dejected because of the sort of arrival of a baby, but I didn't feel that at all.
Yes. Now, one interesting thing that you said in your letter, Teresa, was that you felt that having Victoria cemented your relationship. And I suppose it's, it's one of the classic things that people like Claire always say, is that this is not a good idea to have a baby to cement your relationships. And does this mean that you were having lots of rows and things before then?
No. We just, I think the first year of marriage is always the worst anyway, especially was for us. And I think that sort of having her has just made it all right for us too, I mean, we didn't have her because we were having rows and things. We just decided we would want children.
It's a growing up experience, isn't it? This is the thing. What happened was that instead of being turned in on yourselves, you were able to turn out to someone else.
Right.
I think you were probably very clever, actually, without knowing it. But when seriously, Chris, you said that you'd read about, fathers getting resentful and miserable and depressed. Often because mothers get so obsessed with the baby, they forget there's a husband and a father there on the sideline. Clearly, you didn't forget.
No.
You were aware of this.
I didn't actually think of that at the time. I mean,
But obviously we did it right. And I think that makes an enormous difference. Because so often when people have babies, they forget that the Mr. and Mrs. bit in the business of being mum and dad. And you clearly didn't. So I'm delighted you're doing so well. She's a very happy lady, isn't she?
She's not very often miserable, so it's a bonus.
She sleeps well and eats well and all those things.
Yeah, she's just a joy to have around, really.
Well, that's a lot to do with having parents who are nice to be with.
Yeah.
No, without wanting to say that all children who cry a lot and who have feeding problems have unhappy parents, far from it. But parental tension and anxiety inevitably affects babies. I mean, this is a sort of fact of life that people have to face. And when you have a happy baby, it actually adds to your happiness because it makes you feel successful. And the whole thing grows positively. Instead of, as in some families, it grows negatively because things go slightly wrong and people get depressed and then that kicks back on the baby. The baby gets more miserable, pushes on the depression, and you get a downward spiral instead of what you've got, which is an upward one. Well, it's nice to see you after, reading so many sadness.
It really is, because, I mean, we get, as you say, the nature of your beast in a way, Claire, is that you get letters saying, you're having a bad time. But, I mean, did you not hear from, like, friends or people that you knew warning signals that you would probably, go through the mill,
All the time people say, isn't it a shame they grow up and, you're being very brave and things like that. I think that was really to do when I was pregnant at work. I worked in London and I think everyone was saying, you're brave going through having a baby, and I was thinking, okay, I want a baby and this is the only way I'm going to have one, is to, have one myself, sort of thing. So I think when you get your mind in the right frame of mind, you've got to sort of parallel it down and think, right, I'm going to go for it, and you just do it.
You are quite young, aren't you?
22.
22, yeah.
I was 20. She was 2 weeks old when I was 21, so I had her quite young, really. But we decided we'd have children young, so that when we are older and the children are older, we are still young enough to, have a good time.
Do you ever Claire, do you ever sort of have any rules about that, or?
No, there aren't any rules. I think, that you do it when you're ready. The readiness is all. It's like this thing about should you have all your children close together, 1, 2, 3, or should you spread them out? It depends entirely on individual circumstances and needs, but the most important thing to do is think about it, which you obviously did. The people who have the problems are the ones who say, I became pregnant, as though they weren't there at the time. Do you know what I mean? Because they hadn't really thought about it.
Yeah.
They're the ones who have problems, but you thought about it, you planned it. And that, I think, makes an enormous difference, because it means you get your head together.
Chris, were you at all surprised by the feelings that you had about it? Because I suppose, in a way, society expects women to feel kind of all gushing and maternal about having a baby.
Yeah. I've never been that good with children before we had Vicky. I'm not saying I'm not good with them now, but at the end of the day, the way I feel towards Vicky has changed. It makes me feel a father. And that came about as when she was born. But my sort of the maternal feelings, as it were, for a father were non-existent until she actually arrived, and in the delivery room and everything.
There's a wonderful old saying, you know, that it's very easy to become a father, very hard to be one. Do you find that you have to stop and think sometimes about your own reactions?
Yeah, sometimes you tend to let your reactions run away with you.
Yeah.
And that's when you got to keep them in check, and that's very difficult to do.
How old are you? I didn't hear.
25.
You're 25, so you're still also very young.
Yeah.
That's how it makes me sound older than God. but it is quite young to be taking on responsibility of another person's life and well-being.
Well, thank you.
So you've done awfully well.
Very much indeed for ending our special week on a very positive note.
Absolutely.
And Vicky's been an absolute star. Wonderfully behaved. And come again. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Stay with us to work out with Lizzie very shortly.
Somebody left this in the changing room. Palmolive. This shampoo will make a beautiful difference to your hair. And frankly, my dears, it has a fragrance I can only describe as attractive. Nobody owning up? Then I shall keep it until somebody does. Dismissed.
New Palmolive. Pure and mild, but not as innocent as it looks.
Starting next week on TVAM, everything you wanted to know about Woody Allen.
I'm happy but eternally apprehensive. I've never had to get up in the middle of the night and walk the floor with the baby while he was throwing up on me. Practically all my friends are women. Yes, I've been very lucky, and I hope everything keeps going that way.
The Woody Allen interview, exclusive, next week on TVAM.
Time for Lizzie.
Good morning, good morning. Now, Mrs. Deanie Rowe wrote to me from Wimborne in Dorset saying that she gets up at 6:45 to do the exercises every morning. Now, she's 69, she's a great-grandmother, and she said, you and Richard, way back in March, chose lots of 60s records to do exercises to. She said you call them golden oldies. I'm a golden oldie, but she said, where's the music, say, from the 40s? Now, here's a great single that's rocketing up the charts, and I hope, Deanie, this will keep you happy, even though it's 9:18. So, come on, everybody, let's take it away. Now, clap. It's quite energetic, this. Now, the Charleston, forward on your left, back on your right. Forward you go. Come on, Deanie! Pick those feet up. Now swing your arms to your sides. Lift me up 8 times.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock.
And change.
5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, rock. 9, 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock.
And the singles. And twist your way to your side. Take it down. And up. Now walking to your left side 4 times with arms up. And a change. Change it again. Woo! Right knee up. Now jump the feet across and out. Do I hear you being a bit breathless? No. Try the arms as well. Have you got that now? Now, how are those knees? Cross those knees. 2 claps up above your diagonal. And then kitchen or your bathroom. Swing away with your day. Shook up.
Brilliant. That is wonderful. I love
that music all day.
I know.
Best one was last, all shook up.
Or harking back to your youth, Mike.
I don't know. I actually like the purity of Rock Around the Clock, actually.
Oh,
And I like Glenn Miller.
it's a boring record, isn't it?
I like the orchestra.
I like Miles Davis.
It's probably links into Bronx, is it?
Yes, I hope you like
Ross are on tomorrow.
Luke and Matt Goss will be joining us tomorrow from 7:45 tomorrow morning, so right up to 9 o'clock.
And we've got Fat Cats. And Richard Keys, actually.
It's going to be one heck of a day.
Bye.
Hello again from YTV. Well, this is the 4th children's ITV Summer Morning.
Good morning, welcome to CITV. Morning,
yes,
Scally.
indeedy. Good morning.
We have got some great programmes for you, including a brand new series, Vicky the Viking.
Vicky the Viking, that's a cartoon and it's new.
And it's some great adventures there. Also, we've got Disney's True Life Adventures.
That's right, fluffy, wuffy white polar bears.
What else we got for us, Scally?
We've got Creepy Crawlies and Puddle Lane.
And also today, an exclusive talk with Kate Ritchie from Home and Away.
That's
now,
right.
He-Man.
He-Man.
And the Masters of the Universe.